Good evening. This is Desiree Dubois from Homework, and this is
Gary Zimmerman.
from
Costa Azul Cabo LLC.
Okay, fantastic. So we are excited because we have a couple new offerings for our co-working, co-living facilities. And the most recent one is in Costa Azul and Cabo San Jose. And many of the people that wanted to invest in it were asking a lot of questions about what if, how can they use their retirement funds? And many of them have that they've been contributing for years and they don't know the pros and the cons and the how to transfer those funds and be able to utilize those funds, not only for syndications, but for real estate. But I noticed, Brian, for gold and notes and all kinds of things. So tonight, to demystify the whole process, we have Brian Martinez, and he is the retail sales manager with NuVeiw. And he's been with them since 2018, but NuVeiw has been around since 2003.
2003. Yeah, that's correct.
Fantastic.
Wow, almost 20 years.
Yeah, almost 20 years. So they're, it's a great company. They've been, then you'll tell us how fantastic it is, Brian. Welcome and thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Desiree. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Just give me 1 second here.
You're in Florida.
I'm in Florida. Move this over. All right, can everyone see my screen?
Yes, using SDI, IRAs, and solo 401ks for your real estate deals. Fantastic.
Right. All right. So once again, my name is Brian Martinez. I'm with NuVeiw Trust Company. We are right outside of Orlando, Florida. Our office is located in Longwood, Florida. And we also have an office in South Dakota. So before I get started, just a few things about myself. I've been with NuVeiw since 2018. Kind of funny, I worked in the fitness industry for about 10 years, and one of my clients came in, started telling me a little bit about what she did. And, I had never heard of self-directed IRAs before. This was all brand new to me. I knew about IRAs. I never knew you can invest in things like real estate with an IRA. I mean, I started asking her questions like, is that possible? Is that legal? Is this a pyramid scheme? Like, I've never heard of this. Why don't I know about this? But guess what? I hear this every single day. People telling me, I wish I would have known about this sooner. So today I'm going to go through all the basics. But before I get started, just a few things about who I am and who NuVeiw is. What NuVeiw is, we're a self-directed IRA custodian. So we are not financial advisors. We are not tax professionals, really. We're just a custodian. We're just like that Fidelity or that Charles Schwab without the advisors. We don't give you investment advice. So before you make any investment, it's really up to you to do your due diligence, make sure that's what you want to do. And that comes with the self-directed part of the self. You have to do a lot of the work and the paperwork in order to execute this investment. So I'm going to go through the process with you as well. Now, what can you use? What can be self-directed? Well, IRAs, you have education savings accounts, solo 401ks, even health savings accounts. Any of these plans can be self-directed into what's called alternative investments. So the difference between us and your Fidelity and Charles Schwab's is they limit you to the stock market. You can only invest in stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. But with the self-directed IRA, you have a bigger range of investments, probably things you're already investing in with your own cash, things that are tangible assets like real estate. So I'm going to cover a whole lot of different types of real estate that most of our clients will invest in. So you're getting diversification in your retirement portfolio. You're also getting tax savings using a self-directed IRA. So your investment's either going to grow tax deferred or even better, tax-free. Just depends what your strategy is and what works best for you. And you're investing in what you know best. So if you're already a real estate investor, might as well save on the taxes, right? So these are the plans that you can use to self-direct. I'm going to go through all the differences here, but these are the contribution limits. What contribution limits are, it has to be earned income in order to make a contribution to a plan, you have to have earned this income. So Social Security, unfortunately, won't work, but if you're working part-time, full-time, you have earned income, it's not passive income, usually like a W-2 job, then you can use that to make a contribution to the plan. So you have your traditional IRA, you have your Roth IRA. These are called personal plans. They're taxed differently, but the contribution limits are the same. So it's $6,000 a year that you can contribute to the plan if you're under the age of 50. Once you reach the age 50, there's an additional $1,000 catch-up contribution. And then you have your employer plans. My favorite is called the Solo 401k. We call it a Solo QRP, which stands for Qualified Retirement Plan at NuVeiw. And it's $61,000 you can contribute to that plan. That's pretty cool. That's a lot more money, right? You have to be self-employed in order to be eligible for this plan. You cannot have any employees. It also has a catch-up contribution. Additional $6,500 can be contributed if you are over the age of 50 and you have a solo 401k. The SEP IRA, same thing, $61,000 can be contributed. It's just a little bit different. It's up to 25% of where your earned income is at the end of the year can be contributed, but you can't exceed that $61,000. Now, the SEP IRA does not have a catch-up contribution. Now, one of the differences between the solo and the SEP IRA is with the SEP IRA, you can have employees, but if your employees are full-time and they work over 1,000 hours a year, whatever you contribute, the percentage of your income you contribute to your SEP IRA, you also have to match for your employees. So that's something to take in consideration if you're considering doing a SEP IRA. And it is an employer plan. It's just another retirement savings. Then you have your simple IRA. We don't see too many of those. The reason why is the SEP IRA is a little more superior compared to the simple IRA. So it's a little more of an outdated plan, but it's great for small businesses. You can contribute up to $14,000 a year with an additional $3,000 if you're over the age of 50. So that does have a catch-up contribution. The simple IRA, it does have a mandatory 3% employer match. So on the business side, you do have to match for any eligible employees. And then you have your specialty plans. So education savings accounts, these are for the kids. So any kids or grandkids, if you want to start a college savings for them, you can contribute $2,000 a year. Now, this isn't tax deductible, but you can make contributions up till the age of 18 years old, and that money can be partnered with some of these other IRAs. And that's the power of growing that. You don't want to just make the contributions and rely on that. You have to invest it into these alternative types of assets. So you can partner multiple plans together, and that's how it keeps growing. And that's how you really, truly build your wealth. And then you have your health savings accounts. Most people don't know that a health savings account can be used and self-directed and invested. Most people just use it every year for their medical expenses. But guess what? You don't have to do that. You can save your medical receipts. You can save your invoices. You can save all the money you're spending on, prescriptions, save all of that. Keep that money working for you and growing for you. I've met a handful of people that have actually turned their health savings accounts over $200,000, $300,000. And that's only because they're using that smaller account and partnering with their IRAs on some of the investments that they're already making. So that's a really cool strategy, and it's a great way to build wealth. So I'm going to go through some of the differences on your Roth and traditional IRAs. So your Roth IRA, the way that's taxed is a tax-free vehicle. So when you make those contributions that I talked about, say that's $6,000, well, it's not tax deductible. You're going to pay the taxes on that $6,000 or $7,000 if you're over the age of 50. It's going to grow tax exempt as you keep it invested. And then once you take it out after you're 59 and a half years old and you want to start taking that money out if you need to, well, it's tax free. And then the traditional IRA is a little bit different. The way the traditional IRA is, it's tax deferred. So what that means is you're going to make the contributions to that IRA, and it is tax deductible when you make those contributions, but it's going to grow tax deferred. So that means that you are still going to pay taxes on whatever the amount is that you take out after the age 59 and a half years old. So if you grow that account from, $20,000, and once you retire, 20 years down the road and it's worth, $400,000, well, you're paying the taxes on that. You haven't paid taxes on the growth yet. So after 59 and a half years old, you want to start taking distributions. It's based on whatever your tax bracket is at the time that you take the money out. So if you don't take the money out and you want to keep that money working for you, there's a thing called RMDs. They're called required minimum distributions. So once you reach the age 72 years old and you have a traditional IRA, you have to start taking the money out until you've taken it all out, because the IRS, they want you to pay your taxes on it. So that's the difference. The Roth IRA does not have RMDs. So that's why I like the Roth IRA. But like I said, everyone's strategy is different. Now, the contributions don't sound like a lot of money, right? It's not a whole lot to get started, but this is how most people get started. If you've ever had a 401k plan from a previous employer, that money could be rolled over into an IRA. Now, most of the time, it is pre-tax dollars. So it would roll over to a traditional IRA. And that's how most of my clients get started. They left an employer and they had an old retirement plan and they want to move it to an IRA. Now, if you prefer the Roth IRA, what you could do is convert those pre-tax dollars to post-tax dollars, and now it's in a Roth IRA. So like I said, figure out what strategy works best for you, speak with your CPA or your financial advisor and see what they think is going to be best. So I'm going to go into a little more depth with the employer plan. So I talked about the contribution limits and some of the differences between the solo 401k, the SEP IRA, and what some people like to call the solo 401k a Roth 401k. And what that means is they're just converting all their pre-tax contributions to that plan into post-tax dollars. So it really becomes like a Roth 401k, but a Roth 401k is not a real thing. It's just them doing a Roth conversion within the plan. So the way the solo 401k plan works is you play two roles in that plan. And this is my favorite plan. You play the role as the employee and you play the role as the employer. Remember, you're self-employed in order to be eligible for this plan. Cool thing about the solo 401k, it's exempt from what's called UDFI tax. It's the only plan exempt from that. What is UDFI tax? So UDFI tax is basically when you invest in anything like real estate and you want to take a loan or a mortgage or there's some type of leverage involved, well, you're going to pay tax on that leverage portion of your profits because it's borrowed money. However, if you use a solo 401k, you're exempt from the UDFI tax. So you can invest in things like syndications, or you can buy a rental property and take a loan and you don't have to worry about that UDFI tax. If you did that same thing in an IRA, you're subject to the UDFI tax. That doesn't mean you can't still make great returns and great investments, even though you're paying the tax on the leverage portion of your profits. All right, so the health savings accounts and the Coverdell, I'm going to cover a little bit about those, but I gave you some information already on that. A health savings account, in order to be eligible for a health savings account, you have to have a high deductible health care plan. If you're not sure, you might have to call your plan provider, or maybe next year, usually in December for my company, is when you can change your healthcare plan. If you want to do that and there's a health savings account option available to you, you might want to consider that because like I said, that money, once you make the contributions to the plan, can be invested and you can partner with these IRAs. Now the Coverdell savings account, that $2,000 that you contribute for the kids, it's not tax deductible. It's only tax free if it's used for school expenses. So it could be private school, it could be college, tuition, internet, books, so many different things. Whenever it comes to uniforms, I've seen clients use it for a lot of different things. As long as it's a school expense, it's tax-free coming out. Now, say you have a child that has the ESA account and they decide they don't want to go to college. What you can do, you can actually roll it over to the next child if they don't have one, or you can combine it with theirs because they're not going to use it. So that is always an option. If they don't use it by the age of 25, you do have to take the distribution. So most people would rather it roll over to the next kid or a grandkid. So I talked about the solo 401k and the UDFI, but this breaks down the different buckets here. So we talked about the contributions, and this is how it works. It's 25% of whatever your self-employed W-2 income, or typically 20% of your 1099 income can be contributed because you're playing two roles. So the employer is making a contribution that's tax deductible on the employer side. And then the employee can contribute $20,500. If you're over the age of 50, there's an additional $6,500. So in total, if you made enough money, you can potentially contribute up to $67,000 in a solo 401k. Now, if you don't have a retirement plan and you are self-employed and you're a high earner, this is something you might want to consider. A few things, and I'm going to go through all the different rules. This is a 401k, not an IRA. In an IRA, you cannot take a loan against a 401k. In a solo 401k, you can take a loan up to $50K. If your account is at least $100,000, you can borrow $50,000 from it. for your personal expenses. This isn't an investment. This is you just borrowing money from a 401k. And not only that, but you have to pay it back with interest. So it's like you're kind of doing a note to yourself and you're paying yourself back with interest. You have to make payments over 5 years, at least quarterly payments. So that's another way of growing the account. I don't suggest taking a loan if you don't need to, because you probably could get better returns if you invested it in some of these other types of investments and deals. You can also do Roth conversions, like I mentioned, the Roth 401k. So say you made that maximum $67,000 contribution because you're eligible to do that, convert it to post-tax dollars. And now going forward, the rest of your life, that is going to grow tax exempt and you can take it out tax-free, just like a Roth IRA. And it comes with what's called checkbook control. So what checkbook control is, typically in an IRA, a lot of clients like to have checkbook control. It's where you create an LLC for your IRA. Your IRA is the member, you are the manager. And instead of your money sitting in the custodial account, so at NuVeiw Trust, you have a bank account for your LLC and you can write your own checks and make your own investments through the LLC's umbrella. Now, a solo 401k comes with that. All you have to do is open a checking account in the name of your 401k plan, and it comes with the checkbook control. Or what you can do is, if you don't want to do the record keeping, you just hire NuVeiw to be your record keeper, and we can do that as well. So I did talk about the UDFI tax. Like I said, you can save a lot of money on taxes if you have a solo 401k. So there are some restrictions on these types of investments. There's people restrictions, transactions, and investment restrictions. So what are the rules? Your investments got to be a passive investment remaining at arm's length. So if it's like a piece of real estate, you can't live there, you can't use it personally, you can't put any sweat equity in the property, and neither can what's called disqualified people. So these are the people that are disqualified from doing any business with your IRA. It's you, the IRA owner, your spouse, your parents and grandparents, children and grandchildren. These are disqualified. So they can't live there, they can't rent the property, and they cannot put sweat equity in the property. So your ascendants and your descendants and any beneficiaries to your IRA. So these are the people restrictions. I'm not going to go through every single one of them, but if you're investing like a company as well, they cannot be the majority owner in the company. They have to own less than 50%. They also cannot be a decision maker or on the board if you want to invest in their company. That way it remains at arm's length and it's a passive investment. You also can't buy, sell, trade, or loan or extend services to your IRA directly or indirectly. And these are the things you cannot invest in. You cannot invest in collectibles. Why? Because I might look at something and say, I think it's worth this much, and somebody else might think it's worth another amount. Collectibles are completely off the table, unfortunately. Even collectible cars, you can't do that. And life insurance contracts, because life insurance is meant for when you're dead, not while you're alive. So self-directed IRAs are meant for when you're retired. So real estate, what kind of real estate can you invest in? There's a lot of different choices when it comes to real estate. So you can invest in things like foreclosures, tax liens, multifamily apartments, real estate options contracts, condos, unimproved land, commercial property, and offshore real estate as well. You can also do private lending. So there's secured notes and there's unsecured notes. What's the difference? So just like anybody would go to a bank and take a loan out, well, a lot of my clients are the bank. And what they do is they use their IRAs and they do private lending. The cool thing about the private lending is they get to negotiate what the terms of the note look like. And their IRA holds the note, the deed to the property until the borrower has paid them back. A lot of times they lend to people that are like fix and flippers because they know it's a short-term investment, but they can make some decent returns. Or you can even buy existing notes. There's companies like PaperStack where they already have notes for sale. And you can definitely buy those, whether they're performing or non-performing notes. There's a difference. If it's performing, that means the borrower has been making their payments on time. If it's not performing, then that means the borrower is not making their payments. Some people prefer the non-performing. Why is that? If you don't pay a bank back for the loan, what does the bank do? They foreclose on the property. Same thing in a self-directed IRA. If the borrower can't pay you back, you take the property. So your IRA ends up owning the property rather than owning the note. Now, one rule is don't loan if you don't plan to own. So that's another thing about, loaning is do your due diligence, look at the property, see if it's, worth you lending the money for it as is, because you don't know if the rehabber is going to finish the renovations, and you might end up having to finish those in the IRA, or you can always sell it. So that's always an option. There's a difference between secured notes. Secured is secured by real estate. Unsecured, it means it is not secured, but you can charge higher interest rates if it is unsecured. So private entities is probably the most common type of investment that I see. So syndications falls under that. So if you're looking to, invest with Desiree, this is something you want to look at. You can invest in things like trusts, joint ventures, limited partnerships, LLCs. Most people are investing in these types of assets. Most of it is real estate. It could be apartment complex, self-storage, mobile home parks, unimproved land. Any of the things I mentioned in real estate can also fall under this category, but you're investing in the company, not the actual real estate. So that's the biggest difference. And what we would need is called the PPM, or subscription documents, and your IRA is the investor, not you personally. So it's titled a little bit differently. Now, this is what the title is going to look like. Before you buy any real estate, make sure the IRA is titled. So it's going to be NuVeiw Trust Custodian, FBO, your name, your account number. If you choose to leave your name off the title, you can do that. Some clients choose to do that and they only put their account number. That's acceptable as well. But that shows that your IRA is the owner of that property. Now, who's managing the property is another question. Do you want to hire a property manager? You could make your own decisions on behalf of the property, just can't pay yourself for the services that you're providing to it. Some people would advise it's better to just hire a property manager. What type of returns should you be expecting? Is there a loan involved? And when are your RMDs? Sometimes clients will invest in something like land, which land doesn't have cash flow, and they're almost 72 years old. And if they don't have cash flow coming in, what do they have to do? They're going to have to sell that land in order to take those required minimum distributions, or they can take an in-kind RMD, wherein, well, that means they're going to, like it's a traditional IRA, they're going to end up with the land or the property versus the cash that if they would have sold it. It's a little trickier that way. So I tell most of my clients, start planning for those RMDs. All right, so lending and borrowing from a self-directed IRA. Like I said, don't loan if you don't plan to own. Hire professionals to help you evaluate your deals. You can always hire a real estate attorney. If you're doing a note, how do you want to collect your interest? Do you want lump sums? Do you want monthly, quarterly payments? How long is the term of the note? Keep an eye on the market, of course. Look at the market where you're lending, what city it is, what it looks like, what's appreciation look like. Those are some things you want to think about because you might end up with the property. All right. And like I said, get title insurance on your loans. That's really important. Make sure your IRA is listed as the lender on any insurance policies, because it's not you personally that's taking the insurance, it's the IRA. Make sure your property taxes are paid. You don't want a tax lien on the property. And ask for a personal guarantee. That's always good as well. So notes are a little bit different way of investing, but it's very passive. You don't have a chance of making a mistake versus owning a piece of real estate. There's a chance you could make a mistake. Like it's very tempting to go stay at an Airbnb. If you own an Airbnb, and it's on the beach, you might want to stay there for a weekend. Well, you're not supposed to do that. It's got to stay passive. It's got to remain at arm's length. So you can't do that. So it's probably better that, you follow the rules. Don't be tempted to break them. Now, if you're listening and you're a syndicator and you're trying to raise capital, well, there is $24 trillion of money in retirement plans. And most people don't realize that. And the thing is, only about 90% of the population, they're sitting in cash. Most people don't invest this money and they don't even know about self-directed IRAs. It's usually invested in the stock market. So it's really important to bring awareness, whether it's NuVeiw or another self-directed IRA, tell your friends and your family about this. So syndications, they frequently like to use self-directed IRAs. And, there's a lot of syndicators out there that don't know about self-directed IRAs or they don't have a relationship. So that's the thing about NuVeiw. What makes us different is we love to build relationships. And the cool part is we do all the educating for you. You don't need to know everything. All you have to do is introduce us to who it is that wants to invest in your deal. We will teach them all about it. We will move the funds over. We're using the ACAT system, which means that we can get the funds faster than the traditional way of sending transfer forms. We can request it as an ACAT. So if it's a Fidelity, Charles Schwab, Merrill Lynch, they're all part of the ACAT system. We can move cash a lot faster. So typically about 4 to 5 business days. Used to take 2 to 3 weeks doing the traditional way. So that's another thing about NuVeiw. That's a perk of what we're doing. And specifically myself, I love networking with syndicated because they always have a new deal, and I love to bring them in. We do webinars every Wednesday at 1 p.m. So if you're interested in learning more about self-directed IRAs, or yourself, you want to talk to our audience. We have 13,000 clients. We custody $2.5 billion in client assets. Let us know. We're always looking for educators, and we're always happy to collaborate and bring you on, and you can teach them all about what you know and be the expert. You can't really pitch an investment, but you can educate clients on the different types of investments. Trust me, our clients, they know what you're talking about. And if they're looking to invest with you, they will reach out. They just need your contact information. So if you want to scan that barcode, that QR code will take you to our landing page where we list all of our links on our website, NuVeiwTrust.com. We have a blog section. We have educational resources. So those are great places to watch some of our past webinars and workshops. A great place to learn more. Or if you want to yourself be, a presenter for our audience, we're always looking for guest speakers. We also do live events once a year. We have an investor retreat. Typically, we get 600 to 700 people that are clients, and they come here for a reason because they want to network with like-minded individuals and figure out how they can invest into more deals. So there's borrowers, there's lenders, there's syndicators, people from all different aspects of this alternative universe that's out there. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and open it up for Q&A. If anyone has questions, I'm going to stop sharing here and let you guys take over.
So when is your live event in Florida?
So our last one was January. It was actually the first week of January, and it was great. It was a 2-day event right here in Orlando, Florida by Universal Studios. Our next one, we are planning for the second quarter. We're shooting for April next year.
April next year. Fantastic. That sounds great. And so they had different presentations and people just networked and was able to really meet and learn more.
Yes, it's so much fun. So we have different speakers on different topics. We have people covering things like private lending, mortgage notes, syndications, multifamily specifically. We had Brad Sumrock on our last one. If you're familiar with him, he's pretty well known in Texas. We bring people from all different aspects. People were talking about cryptocurrency. So we have an agenda. It's a 2-day event. So there's specific things that you want to hear, we follow the agenda pretty strictly. We have a lot of networking opportunities. And then we also have, booths set up. So that way you can go talk to some of the people that are presenting, get more information on how you can be an investor, or yourself, you want to set up a booth, just let us know. We have lots of sponsorships available for that. We also have a newsletter. So we're always looking for people to contribute articles to us. And then, like I said, our workshops on Wednesdays, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you want to tune in or yourself want to be a speaker, just reach out to me and I can connect you with our marketing team.
Fantastic. I didn't know about all that. So thank you so much for that information.
Yep. So do you have to have separate accounts for a traditional IRA and a Roth IRA?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yes, they would have to remain separate because they're taxed differently. So like I said before, one's pre-tax, one's post-tax dollars. If you prefer the post-tax vehicle, there's this thing called a Roth conversion. It does, whatever you do convert is added to your taxable income for that calendar you did the conversion. So if you convert too much, it potentially can push you to a higher tax bracket. So always consult with your financial advisor or CPA before you do that. Figure out if there's any wiggle room. What I do see most clients doing is they convert a little bit at a time each year until they've converted it all to a Roth, if that's their strategy.
Okay. And you have your fee structure then is what?
Yeah, so the way we do our fees, and it's a little different from competitors. Most competitors will I hate using the word nickel and dime you, but they will, they charge you all these miscellaneous fees and they start to add up after a while. So just a transaction itself across the board, most companies charge $95 for a transaction. That's just making an investment. So what we did, we changed our fee structure. We stopped doing that. And our old fee structure was very similar to that. We charge a flat fee that includes all your record keeping, processing transactions, your tax forms, and your accounting for $125 a year. So that is annually. And then it's $325 per investment, per asset. If you plan on making multiple investments, you might want to consider the Checkbook Control LLC. Then you only have one asset, because within that LLC, you can have multiple investments and that will save you money. So that's one option. The other thing is, if you're just starting out, if your account is $15,000 or less, then your actual asset fee is only $75 per asset. We want you to be able to save, and we don't want to charge you too much, so that we can start growing that account. Once it exceeds the $15,000 mark, then you're going to be billed at the same rate as all the rest of the clients that are above that. So $325 per asset.
Okay. And is that 325 then also per year that you have the asset invested?
Yep.
Okay.
It's annually as well.
Okay.
So in layperson's terms, they have these funds, whether it's their funds or their employer's funds and so forth. They move it into the custodian account, and that way, when they're able to access it, when they want to access it, they're able to easily access it and divert it. So instead of waiting for their employers to make the decision about where those funds are going, they're able to make the decisions as to where they want their funds to go.
Exactly. You let us know what you want to invest in. We don't find the investments for you. It's really up to you to look for those investments and let us know, whether you're a real estate investor. Do you want to invest in, a syndication? Do you want to invest in, a mobile home park? Do you want to buy land? Do you want to buy offshore real estate? We can't tell you what to do. We can only educate you on the different types of investments, but it's up to you ultimately to self-direct the IRA and tell us where you want that money invested.
And so one of our ladies had a investment, and she's ready to retire, I think in January, and her advisor told her not to move anything because she's ready to retire. So would she have been able to benefit from moving that? I guess she didn't want her to be either taxed or lose any benefits if she moved it before. I don't know. This is what she said, that she was advised not to do anything because she was ready to retire in January.
Okay, and I'm trying to think of why he gave that advice, but typically if you're still with an employer and you have a 401k plan or any retirement plan with the employer, that money is not eligible to be rolled over yet. Now, once she does retire, then she can move that money over. So I think what he probably assumed was she wanted to take a distribution, an early distribution, if she's not 59 and a half, but there would be a penalty and she'd pay taxes on it, but that's not what she wants to do. What she wants to do is called a direct rollover. She will have to wait until she retires or leaves the employer, and then it's eligible to be moved into a self-directed IRA. It's not a taxable event. She can keep that money working for her and invested and growing, and she can only take out what she needs to survive if she does need that money, or if she doesn't, even better, she can keep that money working up till the age of 72 years old, until she's required to start taking those RMDs.
So if I did the checkbook control with an LLC, would I need a separate one for each one of the Roth and the traditional as well?
So no, you don't have to. It's easier to track if you do, but if you don't have to. You could actually make each IRA a member of that LLC. What I would suggest is use easy numbers. So 50-50, 60-40, if one has, more money than the other, try to use easy numbers. That way, when you're making investments and then it's time for the money to come back to the IRAs, what the percentages are, and it's easy to track, because we won't be able to do the accounting once it's in the LLC. It's up to you to do that. But that's what I usually tell my clients, just try to use easy numbers.
Okay. And what I guess was it? Oh, do you have your accounts, do they have a minimum balance they have to keep in the account?
No, there's no minimum. All of it can be invested, but if you're going to do that, you could actually pay the custodial fees. So the fees we spoke on, you can put a credit card on file. That's the only thing the IRS will let you pay out of your own pocket.
Okay.
If you're doing private lending, you're doing a mortgage note, what I've seen clients do is actually incorporate the custodial fees in the note where the borrower is paying our fees for them. So that's a pretty cool strategy.
Okay.
So traditionally, just for, for people's information, when the employer is investing their funds, and I know it ranges and it depends, but what's the average amount they'll be able to, the average amount they're getting? And the reason why I say that, because some of them are trying to weigh out, okay, do I leave it there because I'm getting X amount of dollars, or because traditionally most of these syndications are going to pay upwards of 6, 7, 8, 9, 10%. So some of them are trying to figure out if there's any penalties or anything to be done, is it worth it to them? Do you have any idea what the average is? It average under 2, under 3? Have you seen some of the employers directing the returns be that high?
That's a really good question. I mean, the stock market's unpredictable, number one. You can't control it. Nobody knows what's going to happen. And, it hasn't had a very good track record this year. So, I mean, that's all I can really say on that. If you have a financial advisor, they're taking commissions as well. So you got to realize that it might look like you're making good money, but remember, you're paying someone commissions for that. So take those things in consideration. You might it might look like you're making 8%, but after commissions, you might only be making 5 or 6%, when you could invest in these alternative assets and be making 8+% on these investments. And, real estate's not going anywhere. People are always going to need somewhere to live. So it's up to you. I can't tell you how to invest your money. It's really, you have to go with your gut and do what you understand and what you feel is right.
So if I don't want to invest in real estate, do you have other avenues like cryptocurrency or something you can invest in, or precious metals?
Yeah, cryptocurrency and precious metals. So cryptocurrency is another thing. It's very similar to the stock market. It's up and it's down, and it's kind of like gambling. I have lots of clients that love it, and I myself am not a fan because you can't control it just the same. So that's just my opinion on it.
Right.
On precious metals, yeah, I have clients that do precious metals. Just be very careful with precious metals. You have to find your own precious metals dealer, do your due diligence, make sure they're legit, make sure you look them up, find the company, and that they're going to deliver those metals when you buy them, because that's what happens. We send the money to the precious metals dealer, and then they send the metals to a depository. So we're not holding them at NuVeiw, and you're not holding them personally. They're held in a depository.
Okay. And how would I go about starting this process if I wanted to start? Who do I need to contact at your company?
So you can reach out to me. My email is bmartinez@NuVeiwTrust.com. If you go to our website, NuVeiwTrust.com, there's a little chat bot in the corner. As long as we're open, somebody will be able to talk to you and point you in the right direction as well. But there's over 50 employees at NuVeiw, so there's always lots of people there ready to help. And if you just call us, somebody will pick up and get you to the right person.
And is there any like in of the investment companies, like I'm with Merrill Lynch with what I'm getting ready to move over, are there any of them that are easier to work with for you than others?
No, they're all about the same. It's a challenge sometimes, yes, because they like to be reached out in different ways, whether it's a fax or an email, or we have to overnight it. And sometimes they require medallion stamps, but we have a spreadsheet that we follow and we update it regularly, at least once a quarter. So we'll call every single custodian, that's the normal ones like Merrill Lynch is on the list, and figure out what their requirements are. So that way we can be proactive. Merrill Lynch requires a medallion stamp. I know that because I have lots of clients that have moved money from Merrill Lynch, and I've been there for 4 years. So I would be proactive and say, hey, let me set up an appointment with you via Zoom or FaceTime with one of our accounting reps, and they can get the stamp for you. So you would have to mail that form for us to be able to stamp it, because they require an original. So I just know that. But so I can't say it's more challenging. It can be challenging if somebody isn't proactive and say they sent that transfer form to Merrill Lynch without the stamp, and then it gets rejected by Merrill Lynch. That's going to delay the process, and you could miss out on an investment opportunity. So like I said, here at NuVeiw, we try to be as proactive as possible. And during our consultations, we'll ask the right questions, like, who are you with? Do you know your account number? Can you get us a recent statement, something to help? And then we'll check the spreadsheet and make sure that, if we need certain things, we deliver it correctly so we can get the process moving along.
Okay.
And then I'm happy to say that we are onboarded with your company. So anyone that wants to utilize, tell what the easy process will be for that.
Yeah, so what she's talking about is anytime there's a new asset, you can onboard it to our platform. What that does is it makes it easy. We don't have to chase you down for documents. We've already created the QSIP and we've already done some due diligence for you. And we said this is a legitimate investment. We can't say it's a good or bad investment, but we validated it is an investment opportunity, and they're registered with whichever states on the PPM documents. And now we have a QSIP created, just like, in the stock market, they have QSIPs. It's the same thing in the alternative world. We create a QSIP for it. So that means that once the cash is available in your account and all the documents are signed, we can get the cash into the investment so you don't miss that opportunity.
Great. So anyone that's interested, maybe your information was also in the email, but if you want to put it in the chat, then do, and they can contact you or contact whoever you'd recommend. And then again, the Costa Azul beachside investment is already onboarded with them, so that would make it much easier and much faster. Thank you. Any other questions? We just had so many of them, but Carol or anybody else?
Oh, Carol's got her hand up.
Yes.
I appreciate it. I'm kind of thinking it's not a multi-pot investor like the company coming in, hoping to come in. And I also, my first goal is to purchase a primary residence, my family and I. But I have some things that I really starting a new job next week. So will be an increase. So I'm hoping that I can use that, I can go with this all the funds now.
Desiree, are you getting that? It's breaking up.
No,
Yeah,
I'm not getting
Carol,
that.
you're breaking up a little bit.
Are
So-
you, let's see. It looked like you were getting it. Okay, now she's trying a different source.
Hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Much better now.
Yes, thank
Okay,
you.
it's better. Okay, maybe I have to put my headset on. I had a question about what your thoughts are. Had investors who are also trying to purchase a permanent residence, and they also want to invest in income. So I'll be a first-time home buyer, but they wanted to get that first. I did have quite a bit sort of, in a traditional buyer and I will be starting a new position next week. And I have some funds, for my 401k kind of go into.
Were you able to get that?
She's fading out again.
Not
no.
really.
Okay.
It's blurred for some reason.
Okay. I don't know.
Now, what you can do if you want, I don't know what your availability is tomorrow, but if you want to contact Brian directly, where you have a perfect connection.
Yeah, you can text me or call me, whatever's easier for you. And, or we can schedule a consultation, whatever's easier. You might have a better connection that way.
You can try one more time, Carol, but we're not able really to understand you. Okay, while she's doing that, she may be questions regarding, she's chatting and then, but while she's doing that, I'm going to thank you. So I can stop the recording. Thank you so much. And anyone that has any more, desires any more information, the information is in the chat as well as the email following. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Desiree. I appreciate you having me on. Nice to meet you, Gary.
Yep, nice to meet you.
Okay, so she has a question regarding how to invest while working on purchasing primary residence.
Okay. Whether you're buying your primary residence or not, that has nothing to do with you making any investments. And I mean, if you're using retirement money and you're trying to take it as a distribution, that's up to you. You can take a loan from a 401k. Like I said before, you can't take a loan from an IRA. So if you're using some of that 401k for your primary residence, which you can, Okay. Are you using any 401k money? Because I've seen people take 401k money out for their primary residence. I think you can take up to like $10,000 and then you can pay it back over. It might be more, it might be $50,000, but you can pay it back over 10 years only for your primary residence. You can do that in a solo 401k as well. So, but if you have a traditional IRA, you're starting a new position, planning to roll over more funds into those. I mean, yeah, you can always make investments. That has nothing to do with you purchasing your primary residence. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, you can do that. Nothing's going to stop you from buying that primary residence. It doesn't affect credit, nothing like that. If anything, you know, it's more assets that can help you show, you know, how much you own. If you end up buying like a piece of real estate, now it helps you. Really, I've seen, you know, many clients, in order to be an accredited investor, it really comes down to how many investments you have or how much you earn. So if it's requiring you to be an accredited investor, then your primary residence doesn't count, but your investments will help you with that to, you know, count. So something to consider. But yeah, Carol, let's talk offline if you want. That's my phone number. We open at 8:30 on Eastern Standard Time, so I know you're 3 hours different. But shoot me a text tomorrow. Cool. I'll look out for it.
Okay.
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you.
I know it's late there, so
Yep.
have a good evening and thank you so
Yeah.
much. And I will forward you the information that I've shared with the different clients that may have interest. Okay.
All right. Awesome.
All right.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Good
Brian.
night. Bye.
Good night.